Bruce Linton joins us again. He is an investment advisor with Creso Pharma, and obviously is a very, very interested in this company as we watch it closely more and more, and as it progresses over the last few months. This company continues to garner more and more interest. Record sales to start off the year. Purchase orders confirmed in the province of Ontario for their Canadian subsidiary, Renova Medicinal. And since we last spoke, even more additional announcements. So what do you like, I guess, about this company for you to take a strategic position with them? And most importantly, if you're in front of a group of investors, why should they continue to take notice with Creso Pharma?
Yeah, no, and it's good to be back, man. I kind of miss the fact we're not driving around in a car; we're sitting in like basements and in sunrooms and stuff. But it's okay for now.
Has the snow melted in Ottawa?
Come on, man! It's not June. But what I really liked with them is my introduction to them was through one of their scientists.
Yeah.
And they really had a team in Switzerland that was focused on an area that I thought was super relevant, which was animal care products using CBD.
Yep.
And then expressing and looking at whether or not other cannabinoids could be included in it to achieve things like, anxiety management for dogs, mobility for older ones. So it's a topic I've liked for a long time. And I thought they were, in my opinion, one of the best or the best on the planet at dealing with that as an option. And that led me to then get involved a little bit to understand what they were trying to achieve out of Australia. And, they started looking like this export company now.
Yeah.
And then they're aggressive. And I've always felt like, why do cannabinoids, why do you have to be a cannabis company or a psychedelic company? Why couldn't you just be a company that deals with things that have had historically really stupid rules company?
Okay. And what's that mean?
And so that means the world has spent a lot of time making stupid rules around the governance prohibition and basically ignoring the potential of a variety of substances that have a for sure effect on our body and don't kill us.
Yeah.
And so as the world's awakening, and they are now, I wouldn't see why, if you were going to have clinics like the acquisition that we just made has a clinic down in the East Coast, and it's right beside a hospital that deals with a lot of mental illness. And what they're trying to use is really, really small dosages of psilocybin so that they can open you up to potentially better therapeutic outcomes. Now, if that works, that's great. If it doesn't work, maybe they'd start to say, well, what about trying THC in that way? What about trying, and it opens, and if you're the patient, you know what? Keep trying until you get me good.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think there's an expectation of society that we help people who are suffering with these various mental state questions, issues, and challenges. And what they want is to unlock the best path forward. And so I found that maybe it's that really weird worldly mix, right? Like, here's a company that has headquarters activities in Switzerland, key listing in Australia, a capacity in Canada, and now just enter the psychedelic, synthetic, I'll call it clinical trial capabilities in Canada, and exports to a variety of other countries. So it's really an open-minded company. And so what I like about them is they're not stuck saying, well, we're going to be the best, producer of a synthetic ingredient that exists in, Timbuktu. They're looking at science-driven solutions and how do we do our work where.
So what do you say to investors that may say they're focusing on too many things all at once?
You wake up every morning, I wake up every day and I say, I want to get some stuff done.
Yep.
And by the time I go to bed, I've created a certain amount of complexity because it was super simple. Everything stayed in its swim lane. It's called accounting. Well, I'm not running accounting, Chad. I'm running how do we get stuff done world.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, go back to the start of it, which is how do you achieve a goal for a patient? Sometimes it's complicated.
Yeah.
And so I think they've got a breadth of capabilities, and sure, some things might get more attention, less attention, but I'd sooner have the capacity to look around with a toehold in many things and then jump to those bigger ones than to be stuck at this stage and age in one single thing.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the acquisition because they're now entering into the psychedelic play. But first, there's massive value in to be unlocked when it comes to CBD products in the sport and recreation industries, with an estimated $22 billion by next year, and $200 million that in Canada alone. So tell me what their Creso's letter of intent announced last week with Impact Holdings, and what that may mean for the North American distribution of hemp-based CBD health products.
Well, so let's start at the beginning of it. In my prior life, I was pretty excited. We got to put a deal together to get BioSteel.
Yeah.
BioSteel was a good brand. It was, in second place, way behind Gatorade, but it probably could move faster, and it didn't have a CBD driven option on the table, nor did Gatorade. And the reason I thought that makes sense to grab the smaller one, we could move faster, and I think they're doing that now, is entities like WADA, the people that govern what an Olympian can have in their body to compete. WADA has said CBD is not performance enhancing, so you can have it. But I believe it's not performance enhancing. What it is recovery enhancing. So
Okay.
Shad goes and does a super hard workout. Oh my God, I'm sore. So you take 3 days off. What if
Mm-hmm.
you could have the right amount of that beverage during your workout or after your workout, or is it for the day or two after your workout? So the question people wanted to know is how much,
Yep.
when, in what format, so that I can actually go back to my workout sooner and earlier.
Yeah.
And so that was the theme that drove Creso to think about what they did and that whole acquisition. But I think the market is huge, and almost like no one needs actually Gatorade, right? Like unless you just couldn't find sodium in your diet somewhere, and like that seems to be
Yeah.
not a current problem. I don't know that it aids most people in the recovery for what they have, which is basically not being as fit as you thought you were, trying something you shouldn't, and now you're sore for a while. That's where the CBD stuff comes in.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to find CBD in the right dose and the right delivery and the right time of consumption is a massive game changer in that whole, I'll call it sports beverage world.
It's incredible when you look at this CBD industry and the resurgence it's having over the last few months here, and a lot of regulators coming in. There's certain protocols that you have to meet. They're really cleaning up the industry. You probably agree with that. And what is, I
Oh,
guess, some of the stuff that you're hearing?
well, yeah, they had to, man. Like
Uh-huh.
CBD was almost a curse word to me about 2, 3 years ago
It
because
was.
everybody said it did everything. People be like, well, I use CBD to sleep. And I said, what you're doing is you're using CBD as 3 letters to let you approach the topic of THC.
Okay.
And what you need to talk about is your goal, not your ingredient. You don't go to see the pharmacist and tell them how to make the pill that you want.
Yeah.
If you said to the THC CBD world, I would like to sleep better, they're probably going to give you a combination of THC and CBD in equal proportions that will cause you to sleep better. And so CBD was almost like it was like saying a curse word that wasn't a curse word, right? It was the way that people could talk about cannabis. And then I think they realized after a while that a lot of the formats they were getting were just nonsense, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got like 25 milligrams in a small tub, and I rub a little on my elbow, and it makes me feel better. I'm like, okay, on like 1,000 levels, I'm glad you feel better, but this is crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
if that stuff you rubbed on you actually did get through your skin, what if it actually had like viruses in there and they had special technology that opened your skin up and just allowed everything in? Did you check for the purity of that stuff? No.
Yeah.
So the reason you're not dead is your skin keeps everything out, including that small amount of CBD.
Yeah.
And so the effect is you've just made your shirt dirty, made some guy some money, but you didn't actually get feeling better unless it had transdermal technology
Yeah.
and unless it had a high enough dosage. So what we're starting to see now is that the ineffective, not thought out, like I don't even want to call them products,
Yeah.
just money makers to somebody who didn't deserve long-term income. Those are falling away. And the ones which are being driven by science, remember, I like Creso because they had scientists first. The ones that are being driven by science, they think about how to, like, you can measure inflammation.
Right.
So if you want to have something that diminishes the response your body generates to a hard workout, you
Yeah.
can actually measure this. So
Yeah.
this is the stuff, it's all going there. And CBD will be a very important part of our whole world going forward. Maybe it'll be like one of the things I hope to see is a like a heat not burn product or a vape product looks like that that's actually delivering an appropriate dosage of anti-anxiety medication, CBD,
Mm-hmm.
so that when the people who are now going out to smoke are using that as the way they diminish their anxiety from the workday or during the workday,
Yeah.
they're actually getting a payload of something that's not nicotine and it's not small particulate and it's CBD driven anti-anxiety.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I could picture happening, and you have to have science first to get there.
Yeah. Well, that was a big acquisition as they enter into that and deal with impact of holdings. Another one, as we talked about acquisition, they're now dipping in Creso with the psychedelic play. Agreement actually announced yesterday to acquire Hallucinex Life Sciences, which will become the first 100% owned psychedelic medicines company listed on the Australian Securities Exchange. So, why do you think Creso, pivoted to the development of psychedelic compounds and psychotherapy at this time?
Well, they want to be there's a couple of things they have as goals. One is they want to be a supplier to others. So they'd like to be really good at the synthetic creation process. They have some capabilities. They might be able to make unique things there. And then they want to use them vertically in their own clinics to see their trials happen. So you can see where they could actually become an enabler for a lot of these other bigger companies that are out there
How
by
so?
being part of the supply chain. Well, I don't care if you're Compass, MindMed, Atai, whoever.
Okay.
If you want to go and do experiments, you want to actually do, whether it's preclinical, clinical, where are you getting your ingredients? How many do you need? What standard do they need to meet? Are you satisfied that the labs in a jurisdiction will allow you to ship them to other geographies? So when you think about Canada, can we get Health Canada to approve moving things around? Pretty good regulator.
Right.
So Canada as a place where you might make some of the synthetics or bring them through, where you may buy them from another party, which we have a relationship with, and we'll see over time if they continue to be only the supplier, or maybe we've been our self-supply, but it allows us to really get into the game of saying, we want to be part of the front edge of what's changing in treatment.
Right.
And we're not bounded just by CBD coming out of Europe. We're not looking at just THC. We're looking at whatever works. And so they're aggressive, right? Like, I used to joke, I said, if you think you've made a bad deal, and I don't think this is a bad deal, but I used to say, guys, if we think our last deal was a bad deal,
Yep.
then we should make another deal. But you got to be on the game of using your equity as it trades up to create a creative acquisition so that you have more optionality as a business. And so what I like what the crew is doing is that they're using their well-priced currency to buy optionality so they have a better path to more outcomes you might want as a shareholder.
Right. Are you you're associated obviously with MindMed? Could we see some synergies potentially and relationships formed?
I think why not? MindMed is really on the big thinking,
Yep.
deep. How do we work out of Switzerland? How do we do these trials in Australia? We're building a platform, and the platform will have all kinds of things in there. So this could be a synergy. We haven't had any discussions to it, but I would say like MindMed's got this stride going, right? You can tell that there's a big difference between a company with 100 million market cap and 10 million in the bank,
Yep.
and a billion plus market cap and a couple hundred million in the bank. What starts to happen is the door gets knocked on by super smart. I have this piece of preclinical work. I've created this interesting thing. Can I join your platform? And so I would say where we are at the MindMed level is we're attracting super interesting people who want to be part of the whole program to deliver outcomes that they see risk in staying on their own.
Right.
And that supply chain thing where it might fit in with Creso's down the way, and I don't know if it would, but they're just kind of right now, they're running at different stages.
Yep. What's last thing I wanted to ask you, if you're looking at this company and investors, because there's, let's face it, so many industries are just exploding right now and it can be a little overwhelming, but if you really had to focus primarily, and I know I asked you this earlier, but what would excite you the most, a lasting kind of like message to investors and my viewers about why this is a company that has tremendous upside?
Well, because it has less downside too, right?
Yeah.
It actually has revenue. It has revenue from products that have been created in Switzerland. It has revenue in Canada, and it has the ability to probably grow those revenues.
Yeah.
So now you have that, and then they have these experiments, these clinics, this program. So what you have is the strong beginnings of a business, which is trying to create optionality for expansion.
Yeah.
And that to me is materially different than a lot of the other options for investing, because if they're right, they could be worth a lot. If they're wrong, well, you don't find a place on the wall for that piece of paper you just bought.
Yeah. Potential is a word often overused in these industries. It all comes down to cash, baby, right? Bottom line, revenue. I do want to ask you one last thing, and I know I said this before. It's all about the currently regulatory environment in America and when it comes to cannabis. What do you, or where do you feel, I guess, we are headed with federal reform and descheduling of this industry? Have you heard anything lately on how it's progressing?
Well, I think New York, obviously, there's enough rumors that it's right around
Close.
the corner, right?
Yeah.
So New York is going to be a very interesting leverage point on how that changes the conversation. I don't know that it changes the politics of the topic, but it changes the population under governance in a real way.
Okay.
And so I think you can't, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere kind of topic is actually going to be part of the dialogue. We haven't really seen a lot of fellowship, a lot of camaraderie between the Democrats and the Republicans, right? Where it's a 50-50 split, except for one vote.
Right.
I was hoping we might see a little bit of momentum getting along, because it's actually one thing they could agree on is they can all get elected more likely if they govern cannabis better. And so I'm a
100%.
bit concerned they're not actually stepping up that way. But my next marker post is New York.
New York.
New York does that. You're going to have pretty hard to explain why you're a governor in any other state and still doing nothing, still ignoring it, still not capturing the revenue.
Yeah, 100% agree. But I think there's no turning back as legalization inches closer in the state of New York and obviously other states within, the U.S. Listen, Bruce, appreciate you stopping by and providing an update on Creso Pharma. Let's keep in touch, and we'll speak with you soon.